Ramadan is very festive and a fun time for our kids. How do we excite our children in these days of Dhul-Hijjah? So just practical advice for some parents on getting their kids excited about these 10 days, inshallah.
MashaAllah.
Bismillah.
Jazakallah khairan. Thank you. Alhamdulillah, I'm really happy I saw this question, so I was really happy to see it because, alhamdulillah, as a parent myself and also as an educator, I really think it's great that people want to do these things, to actually want to bring these, preserve these traditions and bring these ideas into their homes. So alhamdulillah, thank you for the questioner. With that said, I was reminded of something that I read, and it's in the Agenda to Change Our Condition that Shaykh Hamza and Imam Zayd Shakir wrote, where they talk about the 7 inroads of the heart. And they mention that 2 of them, there's a difference of opinion about what impacts the heart the most, right? And that's what we're obviously want to do with our children. We want to make sure that we impact them. So there's a difference of opinion whether or not it's a visual, something that is visually stimulating, or if it's through the ear. But some scholars took the position that the eye was the fastest inroad, and others took the position that the ear was the fastest inroad into the heart. And I think this is a good reminder for us because we are an oral tradition. And I think in the age of multimedia and bombardment of visual stimulation, where children are constantly being put in front of screens and just given too many visual stimulating things, and it's this competition, right, for their mind. It's like the real estate of their mind and their heart is being competed for. I think we need to go back to the oral tradition, and storytelling is really powerful. So whether, if you're a parent or a teacher or just even an aunt, an uncle, a grandparent, if you've been on Hajj, that's the best way to impact your children. Tell them your experience. Tell them when the first time you saw the Kaaba, what happened to you. Tell them what the experience of being with millions of human beings in this epic, incredible gathering that is unprecedented. You will never see human beings gather in the way that they gather for Hajj or Umrah. It's incredible. The sea, the movement, just tell them, but share stories, personal anecdotes are really important. And then also from the tradition, from the seerah, pull out the stories of the Prophet ﷺ, during Hajj and all we just talked about the final sermon, but there's other stories as well that we can certainly share with them. Even the story, obviously, of Sayyidina Ibrahim and his son. All of these are important for us to know. And mashallah, Shaykh Yasir mentioned during his talk, beautiful talk, of the importance of modeling. And I think this is what, we as a community need to go back to. We have to restore our tradition of, first and foremost, working on ourselves, making sure we have this information and knowledge to be able to relay, but also preserving and upholding the oral tradition, because they're getting a lot of visual stuff. And I know there's film and a lot of things that we can engage them in, but I believe as a teacher, I've seen the transformation of a child in front of me when their eyes are open and you've captivated them because you are in full story mode. The Quran was revealed to us orally. The Prophet ﷺ, of course, we come to know of who he is and all the descriptions, not because we have a picture book, but because we have hadith, we have words. Words are powerful. So I really just wanted to share that as a reminder for parents not to get caught up in the consumer culture that has become part of Ramadan and Eid, where we just buy a lot of decorative things and just think putting all of these decorations is enough. It is good because we should be celebratory, but I think if you want to make a lasting impact in your children's hearts, share stories. And the best, of course, stories are the Quranic stories. Jazakallah khair. Forgive me for going on. Shaykh Yasir, I'd love to hear your reminders as well.
Mashallah, fatahallah alayka. I thought that was very useful. May Allah increase you. And I couldn't agree more in terms of just, when parents talk about, there's like a season of celebration. Ramadan has a very festive spirit to it. Well, things don't happen arbitrarily. Things happen intentionally. And very often we're waiting for people to create things for us so that we can bring our children to it, or we can engage it in. So if the message is putting on a program or this organization putting on that activity, then okay, great. But short of that, then it has to be just dry and monotone That's really up to us as individuals. We as families, as friends, as networks can create very festive, very exciting, very engaging, very rich spaces. And alhamdulillah, we've had these type of experiences on our own small level, communal level in different places where you can in your home. I called my brother in Turkey. I remember after Eid, and he was like, "I'm sorry, we're having a dhikr gathering in the house," and someone was singing qasaid and anashid, and the house was bustling, and it was just four or five families that came together. That's accessible, and so figure out your friend network and from amongst them, and say, like, every night let's do something together as families. We're gonna read, for example, from the Quran, a selection, do some salawat upon Habib Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, do tahleel, do takbir. Like I said in my presentation, there is, well, I didn't say this part, but the ulama, they talk about two types of dhikr in the days of Dhul-Hijjah. You have a dhikr al-mutlaq or dhikr al-muqayyad. You have the unrestricted remembrance and the restricted remembrance. The unrestricted remembrance is the one that's done all the time, like Abdullah ibn Umar and Abu Hurairah did. So you should be loudly, making dhikr all the time. And then there's the restricted remembrance that's done, at the night of Eid into the third day of Tashriq, which is the one that you do after Salah, the takbirat after Salah. So, don't underestimate the responsibility that you and I as individuals, as parents, have to create those spaces. As Hosai, beyond the decorations, it's the stories, it's the practices. Unfortunately, a lot of us we haven't built the muscle of dhikr. So, just the patience to sit down and do 100 dhikr. I have a gathering in New Jersey called Dhikr and Fikr. It's broadcast live on Prophetic Living. But this whole idea is to get people accustomed to just the practice of sitting down for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and saying La ilaha illallah, saying Allahumma salli Sayyidina Muhammad, saying Astaghfirullah. And I'll tell you, most of the people that come to Dhikr and Fikr have never been accustomed to making dhikr, although their whole life they've heard about it. So until you actually sit down and do it and experience it and feel it. And now, mashallah, I can't tell you, I would never have assumed or fathomed how inspired these youngest of children, as young as 4 and 5, want to sit down and make dhikr. They want to sit down and make dhikr with all the elders. They don't want to be running. They want to sit down and make dhikr, and they enjoy it because it's experience, it's real, and that's what brings, because it's alive. It's life. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu istajibu lillahi wa lirrasuli idha da'akum lima yuhyikum. Respond to the call of Allah and His Messenger when they call you to that which brings you life. This is what brings you life. Dhikr is life. It's the life of the soul. It's the life of the grave. It's the life of the afterlife. It's your entire existence. It's the life of your heart. It's dhikr. So, we can read about self-help and how to give positive vibes and create positive spaces, positive reinforcement loops and all this kind of stuff. Make dhikr. Make a lot of dhikr. And you can resolve so much of what people are trying to sit here, strategize and synthesize and, come up with all new age ideas of like how to be a positive thinking person and create positive space, positive vibes, all this kind of stuff. SubhanAllah, make dhikr. We have it. It's simple. It's accessible. There's no barriers to entry.
Agreed 100%. Just as you were speaking, Shaykh, I was reminded, many years ago when we were training as teachers, we took something called Waldorf training. I don't know if you're familiar with Waldorf.
Very familiar.
These people, they know, they study these things, that children actually learn a lot better when they're practicing with some sort of rhythmic, sense, whether that's movement or rhythm. And they've incorporated that entirely into their philosophy of teaching. We have had it in our tradition for centuries, and we don't take advantage of it. And I agree with everything you said. Children really actually love sitting and reciting. Alhamdulillah, teaching children Quran, you'll see it. They love the artistic, I guess you could say, expression of being able to bring their voice forward in the remembrance of Allah, or just count with their fingers and they get really excited, So I think we need to just go to our tradition. And I say this a lot because I I teach about emotional intelligence and all these things like you mentioned, because people are so impressed by these new concepts, quote unquote. Of course, they're certainly not new. They just borrow from the ancients, but then they repackage them. But if we just went to our tradition, we'd have it all. So, barakallahu fikum.
Alhamdulillah.